do it every day, do it now. You know, make those moments count where you go, oh, look, I've got enough to do, and I might just do some prints. I've got this idea I'm going to pull out of my mind into a print, and suddenly it's made concrete into a piece of artwork that may or may not be the finished piece, but it informs the next. It's this constant iteration of your art's practice. You're practicing all the time.
Yeah.
And I get it now. It's been so long doing it, and it's nourishing.
Welcome back to the podcast. I'm here in Hobart again on another beautiful day. Summer is finally here, and surrounded by incredible beauty here with Deborah Wace. Deborah, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Tim. Yeah, it's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting me in. I've been here for a couple of hours already. So you're a printmaker, fabric designer, and a botanical artist. Perhaps you could tell us, what does that mean for you?
Oh, it's luscious. I love it. It means that I get to delve into the botany, the flora of Tasmania largely, and reveal through printmaking and through plant pressing the character of these plants. And through that process, and then the high resolution digitising of the printmaking and the plant pressings that I've done over 30 years, I'm able to isolate these for design into digital prints onto fabric, onto silk, onto wallpapers, onto different substrates for architectural design, and importantly, to use this work to advocate for threatened species, for flora at risk, for habitat that is under threat, and tell the stories of these plants and their niche in the ecosystems, and also to talk about the early botanical record in Tasmania, and especially the French botanists that came here in the 1790s that collected the type specimen plants, and the stories around that, and around the friendly meetings that the D'Entrecasteaux expedition had with the Lailakwani Palawa people, for instance. And that first contact and subsequent scholarship study that I've done as a Churchill Fellow to go back over to Europe and Florence and Paris and Kew in UK to delve into that collection, those collections, and advocacy work and activism work that I've done over my last 38 years or so to highlight both the habitat, the plant, and the stories in the historical cultural record.
Yeah. As I say, I've been here for a while now, and the last visit as well, we just got talking, and I'm absolutely fascinated with your practice. But what we talked about one of the key things we talked about this morning is the why you do this, and that coming back to that sharing that understanding of the history and the value, the importance of the botanical record.
Well, yeah, I've got no problem with the why I do it. I'm so in love with the natural world. I really long to be closer to it because it is so nourishing, because it gives me so much juice. And it also, it teaches me all the time, the work I'm doing through printmaking reveals so much of the character of these plants, the way that these orchids in particular are so attuned to their little niche, their finely tuned niche, and how they have maximised that to their benefit. I just find them outrageously gorgeous, and people don't necessarily understand our interconnection or know how to find that interconnection. We're just another animal here on the planet, but we have such a brutal impact upon natural ecosystems, and part of my work is to show the delightful simplicity and huge complexity of natural ecosystems of which we are a part. And through hopefully alerting people and waking people up to the wonder of the natural world, people will be more circumspect and more inclined to fall in love with it and to want to make a difference, to want to be involved in conservation outcomes on the ground and perhaps philanthropize back to nature.
Yes. Yeah.
Those that have the means to, because it's really important. Plants don't have a voice like we do. They need advocates who are a voice for the voiceless. And I feel like that's my role. I mean, Deborah, my name in Hebrew means honeybee. I'm a pollinator of plants. And I just love that. I know that I'm doing exactly the right thing here. And it brings me so much pleasure. You know, it's so tactile. It's so the outcome of the work is delightful to me, but the process is equally delightful. And because I'm now bringing 30 years of work, I reach back, I reach forward, I reach in the middle, and my arts practice delights me.
Yes, yeah.
The business side of it isn't always quite so easy or apparent, but it's also a challenge. You know, I'm always up for a challenge, and knowing the why of what I'm doing, it really helps with the how.
Yeah. I've talked with other artists on previous episodes about just, you know, how much of there's a lot of the work that the business side of it that we have to do if we want to be able to have the time to make the things we want to make. So perhaps that's something we can come back to. I love this idea. You didn't just use the word connected, you used the word interconnected.
Yeah.
And so can you take us back 30, 38 years to your where did your interconnection with nature begin? How did it begin?
Well, you know, a zygote.
Well, how did it then inform your practice? You know, when did you just, you know, I guess I'm trying to understand you as a printmaker, a fabric designer, your fascination with botanical, and particularly botanicals from Research Bay.
Yeah.
And so I'm new to Tassie.
Okay.
I've lived here 4 years. I've moved here to get back to nature. I'm a country boy who's lived in the city all his life. And so coming here, but with very little knowledge. And so what you have a much deeper interconnection with the unique species here.
Well, I think for me, it definitely grew through childhood, you know. I was the daughter of British parents that came out here. My father was a botanist, Dr. Churchill Wace, a botanist who himself was an explorer of subantarctic oceanic islands and an exploration botanist, going to, you know, the most remote islands in the world to describe the botany as part of the Gough Island Scientific Survey. And my dad's infectious curiosity about the natural world and his ability to describe it, because he was a geomorphologer, biogeographer, so he could look at the soil and the systems, the natural systems that support the flora. And, you know, he spoke Latin. He could tell me the Latin names, and so my curiosity was really piqued early on.
Yeah.
And I would collect plants and gum nuts to make things, and I had a little industry going in my bedroom floor as a girl. But then I did my degree at art school in Canberra School of Art with some fabulous teachers, Jörg Schmeiser, you know, Raymond Arnold from Tassie now, he came as one of my lecturers. And the delight in the way that you move ink in printmaking and etching and intaglio, dry point, I just love that, because I've always been a drawer. But to create print where it's a mixture of painting with ink and scribing, making permanent marks, it's such a wormhole of artistry that you go into with printmaking. It's entirely lovely. There's so many ways you can make marks.
Yes.
So that just switched me on to my own creativity and to pull out what's inside, you know?
Yes.
What's inside, and all the vagaries that you go through in your life provide you with the necessary ingredients. So, you know, I've lived a life of challenge and curiosity and a lot of wild experiences. You know, I really do love to be out there in the wild. And so I came to Tasmania after my degree in Canberra. I came over here with a girlfriend on bicycles for a month.
Yeah.
And that's a great way to fall in love with a place, because you're travelling slowly.
Yes.
You're in the wind. You're smelling the scents of the grasses, the woods around. You're hearing the birds and the insects. You're in it. And you've got enough time to think, and you're sort of exercising. So you're moving your body, you're thinking, you're fully engaged. And I just knew that I could live here. I was also brought here partly because my father, Nigel, was the expert witness to the High Court case for the Franklin Dam decision, as a botanical expert coming in to give professional academic information about the botany of the area. So he'd met my crew upriver, up the Franklin, before I did, and you know they've become my family ever since. So that was interesting. And so I began my living here in Hobart, you know, finding little studio spaces that I could work in. But I originally started into song and singing and a cappella, and with Melanie Shanahan and Rachel Hoare, we started Aramaida, this a cappella group, which was hugely influential in the development of a cappella and community choirs throughout Australia.
Really?
Seeding
Sorry,
community choirs, which is now part of the fabric of the mental well-being of Australia.
Yes.
I'm so proud that we began this work.
Yeah.
Singing original songs about sense of place, about social justice, about community health, really. We sang for Nelson Mandela on the steps of the Sydney Opera House in 1991 in front of 40,000 people. And I know the value of music and song as a means of expression, the wave of love,
yes,
the roar of it coming off the crowd. For Nelson, the tears coming down his face right next to us as we were singing. You don't forget the power of that.
No.
And the circularity of the connection points. So, and singing harmony, it's about giving and receiving. It's about offering and listening and finding balance. So it's a flow space.
Mm.
So I think I've probably been chasing flow spaces all my life. And, you know, we find it in art. We find it in music. We find it in dance. We find it in all those luscious ways where you give of yourself.
Yeah.
And you allow others to influence you. When I'm out in the bush, when I'm looking closely at the small plants, at the mosses, at the intricacy, when I've got a lens to my eye and I'm looking into nature, you can't help but know you're interconnected. Because you look at your own body, you look at your own skin.
Yeah.
And it's reflected there in the bark of that tree. The pores of your skin, the closer in you go, the more you see that we're all the same.
Yes.
And I find that really comforting. I find that really nurturing and helpful, you know, because life throws things at you that you don't always know how to deal with. But I always know that I can go into my songs. My songs are always in me. It feels fantastic to sing.
Yeah.
It sounds good. I can sing a message about, I can sing about the wild garden. I love the garden. I just, you know, I've written many, many songs.
Sure.
And that ability to go from conversation into song, I love it. It's really cheeky and it instantly takes me into a place of groundedness and quick thinking.
Yeah.
And singing when you're making it up as you're going along, that's really fantastic. That's like extra flow.
I do that with my puppy.
It's your puppy, yeah.
I have so many songs and I can't remember them all, but sometimes they come back and it's when I'm at my happiest, you know. I'm just pottering around the house with Bjarni. But I'm not. I couldn't do it now in front of camera. But just like you did. But that's the thing, right, about your practice is that there's communication throughout all of your arts endeavours or throughout your life. You're communicating something that's really important in deeply emotive ways, in a way that engages us on an emotional level.
And invites us in.
Yeah.
It's not haranguing you. It's seductive in a way. It's subversive. Like the Research Babes. Okay, this takes us down to Research Bay.
Yeah.
Fighting to protect a type locality that was the very first French collections of plants, ethnographic material, geomagnetic surveys, mapping, cultural understandings of the Lailaquani tribe that lived down there in 1790s. We fought a campaign against our own government to protect this place. This was like our Botany Bay, but because it was the French, it was overlooked.
Yeah.
And about to be roaded and logged. And as a community, I lived down that way in Loon River for 20 years. As a community, it was like, we have to keep fighting this stuff over and over again. You have to be so vigilant against your own government, and that just sucks. You know? There's a huge anger and grief in the community that we have to keep doing this, that it's always, the natural systems are always seen as a resource to be extracted, not as a part of us, and us a part of it, to be valued, pricelessly valued. Intact ecosystems, they're a rare thing around the earth.
Mm-hmm.
Old growth forests, outrageous that we're still logging them. The value within those forests that we haven't realised yet, that we can be part of without extracting it.
Yeah.
So, you know, there are many ways that we need to wake people up to the value of the natural world, and art and music, my way, is one of them. And I've been a, direct action activist. I've looked at it in all ways. And I think, pulling that thread that we have out of ourselves, that creative thread, and going, oh, yes, this is it. This is the thread that I will work on for now. Right now, I'm trying to weave together the early cultural record underneath as story, along with the status of the ecosystem. What is it? What is a critically endangered plant? What does that mean? What is a threatened ecological habitat? What does that mean? What does it mean if the kelp forests are dying through the climate emergency, and the cascading impact upon all of the other organisms that live within that kelp forest? Like, I'm really alarmed. I'm full of grief for what's going on, and yet it's not helpful to give in to that grief. It's so much more helpful for me to be proactive, artistic, loud, clear, gorgeous in the tactileness of it, invite people in. Yeah. And here's some plants. Oh, better get the right side of the silk. Here's some printmaking, and here's some plant pressings that each of these plants has a story to tell. Each of these plants is valid. You're valid. I am valid. I'm not more than any of these. None of us are more. We have this grandiose sense of ourselves as humans, and I think it's misplaced, and I don't think it's healthy for us. Yeah. When I am in nature, I feel very revived, and I feel held, and I feel smaller but fuller. Yes. And I'm really grateful for it. So if the work that I'm doing can inspire in other people who come into contact with it, or have it in their homes, on their walls, hear it in their ears, if that's useful to bringing people to that interconnectedness, then I feel like I'm really doing my best human life. We live at a time when we can be. We're recording today. We're recording right now, and the results will be coming in from the US election. We don't need to go there, but all I'm trying to do is illustrate a point that we live in at a time when we've been so saturated with information, misinformation, disinformation from that. But then not just that. So people trying to sell us stuff. Are competing for our attention.
So to be able to communicate through art, through artistic means, whether it's song, whether it's fabrics and printmaking. I was talking before about my friend Richard, the performance artist, who took me along to beach karaoke and got me singing in public for the first time in my life, and waking me up to the reason why we were doing that, and to the people who passed by, but without getting in their face, without standing on a soapbox.
Yeah.
And so this is the thing
Having
about your
fun.
practice is it's beautiful. There's beauty. It delights. The way you communicate. You know, when you sang, I sat up.
Yeah,
I'm engaged with you so much more than perhaps 20 minutes ago. So it enlivened me. And so your form of communication through all of this materiality, everything you're doing, it's not in anyone's face, but it just helps us to step a bit closer to asking that question.
Gotta make it fun and make it useful too. Make it fun. Find the fun in it.
Yep.
And fun isn't always, happy. It can be a deep gratitude. I feel very fortunate to have found my why, to know why I'm doing this. I'm doing this for the plants. I'm doing this for an ecosystem. I'm doing this so that I am within it more.
Yeah.
So you might say it's selfish. I'm doing this because I am looking for deeper connection. But I'm also trying to translate that for other people. And there's a lot of cause to be angry and loud about ecosystem destruction, about this enormous crisis that we're plunging headlong into, and to be really sad and grief-stricken about it. Yes, there's cause for that. And I think that gratitude and hope and the delight and the fun to be found is really helpful, because it's too easy. We're too used to going down into the hard places of the misdemeanors that we've done individually or as a apex predator on the planet.
Yes.
You look at what's going on in America. You look at it's all funded through. It's all about armaments and the mass destruction that's going on around the world. The dreadful, dreadful things we're doing to other humans, and as a seeming byproduct to the natural world. It can't continue.
No.
And the earth will right itself again, and the tragedy is that, so much will be lost from this earth. So I value the little things. I really do. I value my capacity as an artist to have developed skills that I can use to translate it. And that's a lifetime journey.
Yeah.
Every day.
Yeah.
And now I teach, those skills, and I watch people who may not have any confidence in their ability suddenly go, oh, I pulled a print. I pulled a print. Like a print like this, yeah?
Yeah.
So here's me inking up a plate to be black, inking up the plant specimen, laying it over the top, putting paper on it and pulling a print. And then I'm lifting the individual pieces and turning them over. They've all picked up ink from the other side. And there I have the dark is the ink that was trapped underneath, and the light is the new print.
Yes.
And it's doubled. And it's a miracle.
Yeah.
It's a miracle.
Well, this is what I didn't understand you were showing me before. That's it. Yeah. So how do you get the? So yeah, you're just reusing the ink that's that it's picked up.
Yeah, and
that's amazing.
And then you look at it in black and white, and our eyes are really attuned as humans for black and white. Since the print revolution, probably. You cut out the extraneous detail and the colour, and you look at something in black and white, and suddenly you can see part of the character of that plant that you maybe missed. And because it's printed, it's flat, it's two-dimensional, you can really study that in a way. And so that's part of my practice is working like this. Part of it is looking under a microscope and drawing the endless complexity and delight you see under a microscope. Just stunning. And getting to know these plants, and getting them in my hand
Yes.
So that now those plants that I've drawn at that level, I can redraw now. I can redraw now for you as, you know, all of those different sexual parts of the orchid that make up who that orchid is.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's so intimate. It's outrageous. But it's yeah, I really love it. It's very cool.
You've been showing me around the space. You're on one of the upper floors here, just above Betts in.
Yeah, the ninth floor of 65 Murray Street, Hobart.
Yeah.
And I've got this outlook to Kununyi and outlook to the water and
It's wonderful.
and the Derwent Timtamini Munya. I'm very lucky here to have the light and to have the amenity of the whole of the ninth floor.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I teach here. I design my fabric. I cut the fabrics here. I've got a whole showroom. Yeah, there's a lot going on.
And when you were walking me through and describing some of the work that you have on the walls. There's the glass panels as well, and what I suddenly realised was just how deep your knowledge is. So how you were saying you could just sketch, you could draw something from memory now because of the intimacy of your knowledge, and to see how that comes through in your prints where you've studied it so deeply and closely. And for me, the realization was how much work you put into that as an artist to produce wallpaper prints, as I say, prints on glass panels and so on that we've got out there, that you have out there. And so, but you are communicating so much knowledge, and I wonder, my wonder is how many people do actually pick up on that. How do you distinguish between a Deborah Wace print on wallpaper with something that you might buy in any retailer of wallpaper, and so who's buying your work would be another question. It's sort of that depth of knowledge, that depth of understanding that you have, and then how that's conveyed in these objects that can adorn people's homes and spaces, public spaces, private spaces.
Well, I suppose then a part answer to that is people who follow me in my arts practice, in my social media, in my life out there. And those are places where I tell a deeper story.
Yes.
And I tell a story through film because, it's not just, it's me and I'm the name of the brand and I'm the artist, but I also work with a team of really highly skilled people that I reach into project by project, and these are people, cinematographers and post-production in the film industry and studio photography and model photography and copywriting, writing good copy.
Yes.
And writing great, helping get that message out through social media and writing works for publication. And, I give presentations to groups, large groups, Australian national plant, native plant groups, or like I've just come back from the most extraordinary 71st World Congress of Women Chiefs of Enterprise International. Businesswomen from around the world, 60 countries, 400 of them in Sydney.
Yes.
Outstanding women from a whole range of businesses who are really good at what they do and value the interconnections, the networks that help to lift us all up. So, I feel really buoyed by that. And I showcased my work. I took over 6 suitcases, exploded them, and gave a 40-minute presentation on the power of creative business collaboration and the subversive means of art and music to bring about change and connection.
Yes, yeah.
Perfect audience, perfect for me to hone that message and to sing and to show some of these short film assets. And, I really do love and respect the team that I work with intermittently to bring about these fabulous ways to promote what I'm doing. And film is like that. The Sartorial Naturalist film that you've seen a bit of, this underwater exploration, it's just a thing of beauty, great beauty. And I'm so proud that the only language in that film is Palawakani, being sung by Sensa Mansell, singing about the connection back into the dreaming, back into her ancestors, into nature. And that was picked up on by Gardening Australia, who then did a whole piece on me where I can talk in more depth about why it is that I'm doing what I'm doing. And, you know, there's a happy place between creating new work and bringing new ideas and then consolidating that into a product that can be accessible, like film or like fabric or like wallpapers, or like you say, the beautiful works onto glass panels for shower screens or splashbacks. I'm really enjoying that. And then the business side of it, which can be much more opaque and is a real challenge, because all of these things take a lot of money, and so then you need to earn that money through sales of it, and that takes you away from the creative practice. So it's a dynamic system in itself, and my challenge is to keep loving it and loving what I'm doing, as well as the hard bits, and keep talking about it so that people will glean different things at different times. And always underneath is my hope that people will be inspired by my work and look deeper and closer at the links that I can take them to you know, the Orchid Conservation Project through the Botanical Gardens here, where I've been volunteering. Fantastic. They're really strapped for cash. They really need someone who might want to philanthropize back into nature.
Yes.
So I can do that through my practice, but there are people who can do that through their philanthropy. And then they would be part of a community that is also really nourishing, and they might realise that they can go out on those field trips. They can partake in this. There's a entree into the science, and how delightful that is. And suddenly there's a new avenue in their life for them to explore nature and explore themselves in nature. And I reckon that's key. We feel that connection point.
Yeah. I think of, you know, last week you were in Sydney with global leaders and, you know, business leaders, and you were telling me before how you know, some of the people just loved your fabrics and they really wanted to some of them, and so to adorn oneself with your fabrics, then to get that interconnection, and that leads to the inquiry, and that's the beautiful thing.
It is, because, you know, I can wear this scarf, or someone can wear this scarf.
Yes.
And they'll say, oh, I like those colours, or what is that? And I can say, oh, this plant is named after Labelladiere, who was the naturalist on the D'Entrecasteaux expedition in 1790s that came out of revolutionary France to Research Bay, made all of these incredible collections that accessed first contact culture that was peaceful and friendly. And the journal writing, the findings that they brought back to France then became the Flora, then became the printmaking and the plant pressings that are the type specimen record held in museums. That is the type specimen that you always must refer to that plant. That became the first flora of Australia. So then I can use my printmaking to create portals into the seed pod of that plant, with plants in a landscape where you might find the plant itself. And so there's all these different sort of touch points into history and narrative and culture and story, where people might have seen this beautiful purple appleberry, which is Billardiera longiflora, named after Labelladiere, part of that expedition, part of our cultural historical record, part of the cultural narrative between France and Australia, part of my Churchill Fellowship, part of the gathering of knowledge, which is which is one of the oldest threads in human history. You find it on cave walls, you know, animals and plants. And printmaking and plant pressing is really the foundation of that. And that's the whole milieu that I'm in, and I really love that. I love it so much.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's always available, it's always different, and other people's books on it. Like, there's just, my bookshelf is so exciting. The scholarship, the etymology of the language, the Greek and Latin that describe it, and why it would be called that way, how we've come to a nomenclature of language to describe plants. That's fascinating. And in Kew Herbarium, where I was able to find my father's collections from Gough Island and Tristan da Cunha and plants named after him, I just feel like I'm in it, and I'm able to offer something that is uniquely me. And to do that, I need to keep inspired. I need to be fierce with that inspiration.
Yes.
Because I've got to translate it into something that is of really high value, because the plants demand it. I don't want to be just making something that is souvenir-y. I want this to be the deluxe highest market, because these plants are outrageously gorgeous. They deserve all the silk they can muster.
And they have such an important story to tell, and you are telling that story through your artwork.
Oh.
And as you say, to audiences who actually accept your, you know, when they don't just buy your, they don't just buy a scarf or a dress, they are accepting an invitation into these stories.
Yeah.
And then the political potential of that, maybe with a small p to begin with, but maybe maybe they then take that story to another audience, and it grows from there.
Yes, and I think that's why I chose, like when I was living down at Loon River for 20 years, to engage with a gallery. Just, there's so much money involved in that, and framing of everything. It might be up for a couple of weeks and you may sell, and if not, then it's down. You've got to house it again. To put work on a garment,
Yeah.
that someone can wear, that has life and texture. Oh, I do like what you're wearing. Oh, do you know that this sexalicious orchid was collected by Felix LaHaye, who was the gardener on board the Don Trocastro expedition, who was the lowly gardener, but, you know, there was a few plants that he was recognised as collecting. And Felix LaHaye went on to go back to France to be Empress Josephine's gardener.
Oh.
And propagate so many hundreds and hundreds of plants from the New World back in the largest greenhouse of the day.
Yes.
And the stories that Felix LaHaye can tell, and the stories that this orchid tells.
Yeah.
You know, this Cryptostylus subulata is a dry point etching on a field of lichen. And, you know, orchids are so highly attuned to their ecological niche, and the pollinators, the specific timing of pollination, the dance that happens between the wasp or the insect and the orchid, the specific mycorrhizae collaboration that happens. It's amazing that you would ever see a native orchid in flower in the wild, and horror of horrors if you should tread on it inadvertently, which is why I create my orchids out there to be 6 foot tall over 4 plates of dry point. You know, the flower, the bud, the stem, the root. You need to look that orchid in the eye and know that you will be really careful where you tread from now on.
Yes.
Because, you know, they have developed such intricate complexity in relationship in an ecology. And, you know, we come in with our boots and trample and are oblivious, and it's all about us. I walk through the bush now knowing that there's orchids all around. There's birds, there's insects, the trees. Everything is aware that I'm there.
Yeah.
And I know they're out there. Sometimes I'll go looking and hunting, and so I can draw or take a photo. But it doesn't matter. I really love just knowing that they're there looking at me going past, going, I can see you.
Yeah.
And that's enough. It's enough to know that there are intact systems out there. and also that we need to be active. We need to be vocal.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I've done my time being on the front line, and that's exhausting, and we shouldn't have to mortgage our lives to that exhaustion, like is happening up in the Tarkine,
Mm-hmm.
like is happening in so many areas of the world where natural systems it's a valley that needs to be a tailings dam, because we need it to be a tailings dam. That valley is exquisite and complex,
Yeah.
and I'm not about to let that happen. So I think we need all of us in all the different ways that we are advocates for nature, and you know, you can make that a very enjoyable experience. Like with the Research Babes,
Yeah.
we sang songs, satire, and a big dose of history, dressed up in cross-dressing as Louise Girardin, who was a woman dressed as a man. So we wore, you know, pantaloons and skirts and broadswords, and we had so much fun. And we could turn the Research Bay campaign, we could lend that aspect of the multi-skill set of the community that worked to make this win, where we did end up protecting the northeast peninsula of Research Bay, the type locality, for future generations. And that has now gone into the hands of the Tasmanian Land Conservancy, and it helped lift that from the small organisation it was then into the multi-million-dollar and really effective conservation agency it is today, through the $2.2 million that Dick Smith put in, through the agency of the Greens and Bob Brown and Christine Mell and Peg Parton, through a small community that just said, we're not going to let this happen. And we were down a dirt road on the end of a piece of string with a tin can going, this is an international issue, you know? You cannot trash this touchstone to a peaceful cultural, historical narrative. So, you know, using song to sing songs about the French Garden, or songs about that you could sing at a rally, get people's toe tapping, get them involved in it, you have them hooked.
Yeah.
And then in between songs you can talk about what's at stake, what matters, what we need to do. And, you know, and I can bring along artwork for a lifetime after that going, yeah, we won. And it was a group effort, and it was the right thing to do. And it took years of our lives to do that.
Yeah.
And I am outraged that we have to fight all the time and be so vigilant.
Yeah. As you say, it's an ongoing battle. It's you found various ways to communicate that don't affect your health. You said before how when you're on direct action, it really grinds you down.
Yeah.
And so finding ways to communicate through art doesn't grind you down. It doesn't grind down the audience or the person who buys your fabrics or whatever. It's the
and it's not just putting some shit out into the world. It's putting out something of real beauty with a depth of sustainability, and that's key, and that's challenging. And I'm still working on that challenge. To produce work like this, I need to find a supply chain that is totally sustainable, and I haven't yet.
Okay.
But I will be.
Yep.
Collecting sustainably, you know. I think artists, if you can maintain an authenticity to yourself and find people who share your values to work with, you're really lucky to do that. It's way too easy to sell yourself because we all need to pay rent.
Yeah.
You know? It's hard to keep going.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of reasons why I make this podcast. One is my own fascination, but also I think a lot of people out there are fascinated in other artists' processes, and the more we can engage with the process, understand all that work that's gone into it, the more we value it. value the end product or and value the artist, but
and
also
value the collaborations.
because
Because that's what I
Yeah.
love so much. I really do love it. I love the collaborations that I have with people. And for instance, there are 3 delightful women that come in here and volunteer in my studios because they haven't got an arts practice themselves. They're really curious. They want to be around what I'm doing. And I've got any number of little jobs that I need doing
Yeah, right.
that take me away from the business of art or the creation of it. And I'm watching them being of such enormous help to me.
Yeah.
I'm so grateful. But I also see the enjoyment they get out of it. And, and I walk in my studio going, yeah, I love this place. I love the place that I've come to now. And it hasn't always been like that. It hasn't always been easy. Sometimes you walk in going, 50 million jobs to do.
Yeah.
But, these women that come in and help me, I form a friendship.
Yes.
We get close, we feel connected, and they help me immeasurably because sometimes what I'm doing should be spread out between a whole team of people, and often it's just me. So, I'm being given to, and I'm giving back, and there's something. The reciprocity feels really great. And in the film industry, there's so many skills that are needed to create a film, and so then that message, it's about honing the message. What is the real nub of it that I need to get across, and how to do that gorgeously.
Yes.
With really high production values.
Yeah.
And the films on my website, you will see there's some real beautiful ones there. Short film content that showcases the why and the how and the what I'm doing. And then collaborations come from that, like the Van Diemen's Band harpsichord lid. I'm so proud of that, to have my work on a beautiful instrument that is, world class in its making. And it's a touring instrument, so it's music and art.
Yeah.
Like it started, music and art.
Yeah.
And now we're talking about a merchandising collaboration for a bespoke limited edition silk scarf. So, little by little, and life happens. So you may as well be in the moment doing the thing, because then there'll be another moment and another moment. And in a year's time, you look back and go, I did that thing. And in 20 years' time, you look back going, there's a body of work. There's a lifetime of work. And I look back now, and I'm not as fit as I was when I was 22 rafting the Franklin, having near-death experiences that really informed my sense of self in the world. But if I hadn't have had those experiences, I wouldn't have known how to take risks, how to value my own strength and know my capacity. So it's, don't wait to do your thing. Do it every day. Do it now. Make those moments count where you go, oh, look, I've got enough to do, and I might just do some prints. I've got this idea I'm going to pull out of my mind into a print, and suddenly it's made concrete into a piece of artwork that may or may not be the finished piece, but it informs the next. It's this constant iteration of your arts practice. You're practicing all the time.
Yeah.
And I get it now. It's been so long doing it, and it's nourishing, and it's a home. And if I can pull out of that something that is then a product to sell that I'm proud of,
Yes.
then that's great. And there's all the other complications of the amount of money it takes to do that, which can be tricky. It can be really tricky.
Yeah.
To do something at that level.
Yeah.
Where the cost of goods is high. So
Yeah. I mean, we could talk about the business side, but I think what you've summed it up so beautifully, how it's staying true to yourself as an artist. And that's the second reason why I make the podcast, is it's to invite people into your world and other artists' world, to just see just how meaningful it is, how much it matters to you and how much it can matter to them.
Yeah.
And that doesn't get communicated in other ways in the arts. And so, yeah, I think there's so much that I'm definitely taking away from this, Deborah.
Good.
You know, my photographic practice has been suffering lately because I've been focusing so much on the podcast, but I love doing this. So that's my justification to myself. But it is this thing of, I think there are so many of us who are looking for a way to embrace our practice even more deeply, and you do, and it's just really inspires.
Oh, thank you. Well, I think partly it's being willing to take a risk.
Yeah.
All the time. Risk being boring. Risk making a mistake. Risk pulling a whole lot of bad prints. Risk not getting back to the papers in my press and the plants rot. Risk having a great idea and slowly, through applying your skills, turn it into something that is your next sort of digital asset. Like when COVID struck.
Yeah, sure.
I had my my element library of botanical plant pressings from the Flora of Tasmania. You know, over 200 species in multiples, and it was just sitting there. Some of it had been digitised at low resolution, and I couldn't do the work that I'm wanting to do without having it photographed at high resolution. And so I just committed to, I think it was 6 or 7 days of studio photography. It cost me quite a bit of money, but it was over COVID. No one was around. It was on the same floor. It was deeply engrossing and very, very busy time with Remy Chavon, amazing, to digitise the best of my plant collections. And subsequently I've been isolating them for design so that I can put one on top of the other, scale up, play with scale, you know, these small mosses and lichens that I can make into triffids. And, you know, do you love them now?
Yeah.
You can't overlook them. And the same with my printmaking, you know, to isolate the assets. And so now I've got a museum quality personal collection of an element library of the Flora of Tasmania. Not all of it, you know, but key parts of it, and I'm so proud of that. And I my thing is I don't get enough time to delve into it and do more creativity. You know, really, that's a thing, because there's all the every business thing to do, all of that. And I know that really I should just be finding the joy in it, finding the juice and the meaning in the creativity, and yes, apply myself to the business, because that doesn't happen on its own. But I have learnt that I can't do everything, and I need to find the means to pay people who can do what I can't do.
Yes.
Because that helps to move me along. And the team that I have been leaning into and working with, they're great. So, you know, find people, find your team, find someone who can help you do that thing that is, you know, weighing you down.
Yeah, we're all in this together, and as there are, absolutely, it is, you know, that's the book I wrote was about, you know, we're not on our own in this. So yeah, I understand where you're coming from. I'm sure this resonates with so many people listening and watching.
Yeah, well, thank you for coming to talk to me in my studio about my work, because I love to talk about it, because yeah, it's me making it, but it's actually about the natural world, and it's about advocacy for the natural world and being a voice for plants that don't have a voice, and that's it.
Yeah.
That's it. I'm a voice for plants that don't have a voice. And it might be a silken, seductive voice. It might be a song that has a really bold message in it. It might be something that's more comforting. You know, we need all of those things.
Yes.
Everyone has something different to bring. What you're bringing, you know, you're making a real connection point for other people into an arts practice. That's so good. Maybe it'll help people realise that, you know, doing what only you can do in your lifetime, do it creatively, do it with joy, do it with all your passion. And, you know, you get to the end of your life and you look back and went, those periods where I was right in that flow space, at the time they may not have been easy, but I'm so proud of those.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm really proud of the connection points that I'm making, and, you know, the whirlwind that is me.
Rightly so, Deborah. Deborah, thank you so much for all of your time and energy. This has been fabulous. I can't wait to the next time we sit down and talk, because there will be another time, I'm sure.
Oh, good.
I really hope so. So, Deborah, thanks for being on the podcast.
Thank you very much, Tim. Yeah, I appreciate it too.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Connect, Curate, Create. I hope you found inspiration and insights that you can apply to your own creative work. For highlights and links, check out the show notes, and be sure to follow us on your favourite podcast player so you never miss an episode. Tune in next time as I continue to explore life and work in the arts.